1. I work on a military base. These are the kind of customers I get from my government employees civilians. Friday morning around 09:30. I need you to install a printer for me. No problem. Printer is a Xerox Phaser 7500. Base only has Workcenter 7500 driver, the wrong driver, but the customer demanded we use it anyway. Install driver per customer's demands, even though I insist it won't work. Driver connected to the printer but wouldn't print. As I said before, this driver doesn't work since it's for a different printer. We don't currently have the drivers for this printer. I will go back to my desk and install the drivers from commercial internet, and I'll try that one. Hopefully it works, but there's no guarantee. 30 minutes later. Found the driver on the Xerox homepage and downloaded it and burned it to a disk, then transferred it to the network shared drives. I have the correct driver for you. Attempt to run installer, but installer will not initiate. I realize it may not be supported by the network anymore due to vulnerabilities, and it may be getting blocked from installation, or it may not be compatible with the SDC we run. It looks like it won't install. I believe you may be getting blocked by our antivirus for some reason. I will have to work on your computer for a while to see if I can get it to install. Okay, well, I'm leaving in 15 minutes for the day. Will that be long enough for you to fix it? No, it won't. I will have to either hold the laptop while I work on it, or we will have to try another day. Another day is better then. Today, Tuesday, around 09:15. So I spoke with another help desk and they said you should just install the driver labeled 7500 in the share drive. I did. That's the driver I initially installed and it didn't work. That driver is for a Xerox Workcenter 7500. And you need Xerox Phaser 7500 drivers. It's a completely different printer, so the drivers are incompatible. Well, they said you were wrong, and you need to try it. Well, ma'am, they are incorrect, but I recognize that driver in the share is not labeled well, so it can easily be confused with the correct one. Well, they said you're wrong. Please reinstall it. I reinstall the drivers per request. Why isn't it working? Well, it's the wrong driver, like I kept saying, and we're currently unable to get the correct driver to install. I'm working on finding the right drivers for you to be able to get it installed. But the other help desk said this is the right driver. The other help desk is wrong. The correct driver won't install for an unknown reason, and the drivers we do have available on the share drive is for a Workcenter 7500, not a Phaser 7500, so it isn't the right one. So it doesn't work? No, ma'am. It doesn't work right now. I'm working on finding the working driver for this printer. So I guess everyone was wrong. Interesting. I smile, trying to be polite. Not me. I wasn't wrong. I laugh because it's awkward. Are you sure? Can you reinstall it again? Sure. I reinstall the Workcenter 7500 driver again. Workcenter driver connects but won't print. Like I said before, it doesn't work, unfortunately. We need to figure out a working driver for this printer. Then how am I supposed to print these files? The only other person who uses this printer is always teleworking. She can still print to the printer if needed, even if when working at home. Well, when I teleworked, I couldn't print, are you sure? Ma'am, when you're teleworking, you didn't have the printer mapped, which is what brought up the issue with this printer. But that doesn't explain why it couldn't print. Yes, ma'am, it does. You didn't have any office printers installed. The network policy blocks all USB printers. So you couldn't print from your home printer either. So, in all, you would be unable to print until after you were mapped to a printer, and the printer you want to be mapped to is unable to be installed. I'm sure it's because it is likely being blocked by the antivirus software. Network administrators set in place places to block installation of devices that increase vulnerabilities in the network. I did check, and this is the only printer of this specific model on the base, so it may have been phased out some time back, and we are unable to install it. Can you check my colleague's computer to confirm the drivers? Absolutely. I remote connect to the other user's computer. I copy the driver information. Search for said driver install files anywhere in the network. Driver is not available on the network. Confirm the driver the other user is using matches the one I pulled earlier from Xerox. 100% match. See this, ma'am? I point at the screen. This is the driver she has. I attempt to install the driver. Install does not initiate.
Are you doing it right then?
Yes, ma'am.
Then can you install it using this driver instead?
The customer points to the Work Center's 7500 driver. It's already using that driver. I pull up the printer and show it installed using the requested driver.
But you said that's the wrong driver. I want it installed using this driver.
The customer points to the same driver again. Ma'am, it's already installed using that driver. Right here, look. I will install it and reinstall it using that driver again. I uninstall and reinstall using the requested driver. Again. The printer is now showing an IP address which indicates it has been mapped 12 times on the same computer now.
It still doesn't work. Use the other driver.
Ma'am, I can't keep installing this printer and using non-working drivers. This isn't working. Like I said, I need to find a way to install it. We can keep going in circles installing this printer and it not working, or I can go back to my desk again and continue trying to find a working driver to install it if it's able to be installed.
I guess I just need to print these files.
As a workaround, you can send them to the only other person who has access and ask her to print them for you. But as a warning, once she loses access to the printer, we won't be able to remap it at this time.
Why not?
Ma'am, we don't have the correct driver for this printer.
Have you tried this one?
Everything points to the original driver I attempted. Yes, ma'am. That's this one. I pull up the printer again.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess you can't do it.
No, ma'am. I can't install the printer at this time with the drivers we have on hand.
Well, what do I tell my boss then? You know my work is important, right?
Yes, ma'am. I understand your position and its value to the organization. All I can recommend is to inform your boss that there is only one person who has the correct drivers, that IT is unable to install the correct drivers, since it is likely being blocked by the network, and that there is no known workaround outside of you sending the forms to your coworker and her printing it out from home for you through VPN, and that we are still working on finding a way to fix the issue.
Well, okay then. I guess I'll let him know IT didn't want to fix it.
Ma'am, I have spent a total of 6 hours on this issue. I have provided workarounds and reinstalled a printer 12 times. If you want to claim I didn't want to fix it, fine. Tell the world I didn't want to fix it. But make sure you also tell them I worked hard to resolve this, and am still continuing to work to resolve it. Even though I already know it won't work due to network restrictions. Have a good day, ma'am.
Oh, okay, well, thanks for everything you've done.
How the fuck are you gonna try to bully IT into doing something you were unable to do? Do I look like I give a fuck? I don't give a fuck. Can't do what you... Respect your IT shops. Listen to us. We know what we're talking about. 2. So, in late 2008, I took a job at a call center doing IT work. The job was with one company who were doing IT consulting informally, which is what I was interested in and since have done. But in 2008, the job was primarily responsible for managing a call center collected and run by 3 different companies, who were all owned by the same set of friends. One of them, Roger, was my direct boss. Roger had set up his own company called MSP Corp. Roger wanted to break off and do other things, and I was brought on board to make that happen. Then there was Call U, a phone sales company, and WeCall, another dial-up marketer. Anyways, when I was hired, I first did a survey of the IT systems for all 3 companies. And it was a legit mess. Backups woefully inadequate, servers unpatched, servers haphazardly constructed, and cables. It was really bad. Guys were routinely repunching and reworking drops, so much so that the ceiling outside the server room collapsed because of the sheer weight of wiring above the drop ceiling. And every month or so, the whole thing would crash at odd hours. So I said so and made specific recommendations, but Call You and WeCall would not invest anything. So I told Roger that I would begin disentangling MS Corp's stuff from this system and infrastructure. By 2010, we had our own server and cloud email system. The server virtualized a number of our functions, and it worked well. All the while, the systems for the others just sat there ticking like a bomb. These guys were so cheap that they did not want to pay for cleaning tapes to maintain their backup. Well, in late 2009, the backup system had run out of space. And I talked with the partner who was a developer, and he said the priority was his databases, and there was no money for testing or anything. I sent an email to the partners telling them the risks in laying it all out. I told them that in the event of a disaster, I did not think that they would recover anything. The response I got was, "If it's working today, then we're fine." That was a literal quote. Well, 2011 comes around and WeCall is getting ready to move to a new building. The partners have a falling out. WeCall hires a guy, Johnny, to build them a new system. He proceeds to build a rack in his office and just run power cables from his 6 new servers directly into the rack. I had warned him that would place the system in an overvoltage situation, and we needed to get the electrician to look at it. Johnny just waits until I'm out of the office and does it anyways. He doesn't immediately pop a breaker, so he tells his boss Clive that I just don't know what I'm talking about. Well, at 2 a.m. that night, the tape drive comes on and the breaker pops. I rush to the office, remove Johnny's jury-rigged power cables, and get the stack mostly up, all except for the file server. That thing will not boot at all. I check it, and the 12-year-old compact Proliant has blown the power supply. I pull a spare from our boneyard of servers, only to find out the drive is toast. It seems this server was set up in RAID 0. Backup drive is also dead, and because there was no rotation, the tape was the only one they have. Anyway, Mike, the CEO of Call You, calls me in after hour 12 of dealing with this and fires me. Roger tells him he can't do that. So Mike tells me he doesn't want me working on his stuff. Okay, so I didn't. A year later, Call You goes out of business. Roger sends me there to reinstall all the servers, which we store until we recycle them in 2016. All that is backstory to this. All this time, I've been building MSP into a successful consultant business. Last month, Mike calls me and asks for the backup of Call You's servers. Apparently, there is some sort of tax thing he needs. Nope, I say, everything is gone. No backup, no archive, nothing exists. So Mike stands there and tells me, "You're just getting your revenge." To which I replied, "I don't have 15-year revenge plans." So yesterday I got served a lawsuit where Mike is suing me personally for $7 million. So June is going to be fun. 3. Okay, so this happened a week or two ago, and it has just stuck with me, living rent-free in my head. Since it's already not a good tenant, I decided I should share it with people, so that maybe I can get my mind back from it. I work for a large computer hardware manufacturer, and we sell an optional support contract along with all of our machines. There's different levels, but I work in the one right below the enterprise support level for tech support. It's intended for small to medium businesses, but we get the occasional home user who wanted to pay for the really good support. Yes. So I get this call and immediately see that this case has been open for like 3 months. For reference, our cases are usually open for a week or 2, if they're not closed on the first call. This gets me curious, so I start perusing the notes. The user complains that he needs a new motherboard. Okay, we can do that. But we need a decent reason why. I begin down my normal path, asking some questions to clarify why he needs a new motherboard, and split my attention between his out-of-breath rant and the case notes. Now, this guy has gotten a lot of parts replaced for a normal case, and we just mailed them to him, which we're not supposed to do without verifying they actually own, or more importantly, have the system in their possession. Some might think this is weird, but there's a lot of fraud in the industry. You'd be surprised if you weren't a tech person. As an aside, if we send a technician with the part, they verify the system before we put it in. So far, everything had been parts only, and the customer flat out refused a tech. The plot thickens. Time for a bit more digging. I look at the list of replaced parts, wondering just what we've given him so far. Part numbers start flying, technical descriptions pop up, and I slowly decode the list. The list includes hard drive, parts only, never completed, and security stuff the first time. But the second rep gave him the part, which is totally against policy. Second hard drive with an image of Windows, memory, 2 sticks. A third imaged hard drive. Not to mention 2 work orders for parts and labor that were cancelled because I only needed the parts. Now, why would someone need more hard drives than God and extra memory? Well, someone with a pesky virus, or something like that. The notes literally read, customer had security concerns at several points. Okay, a little weird, but not totally out there, I think. I was so very, very wrong. At one point, the conversation goes like this. So what leads you to think the motherboard needs to be replaced?
Well, I know that someone is monitoring my computer, and the hard drives and memory didn't fix it. I can tell when I turn on my computer that they're monitoring it.
I tilt my head like a confused puppy. What do you mean someone is monitoring your computer?
Well, like with a virus, I think they've got a BIOS virus, so I want to swap out the motherboard. I already pulled the battery out and the settings are still there, so that didn't reset anything.
Cue a brief discussion on resetting the BIOS and what gets reset.
Well, that's not what the last rep told me, and I found the instructions online, but it didn't work.
Okay, well, we can possibly replace the motherboard. I just need to ask a few more questions.
Okay, go for it.
So how do you know someone is monitoring your computer? What gives it away?
I can hear it.
Now, some of you may be thinking this is a fan issue, and he's just hearing his system boot up. Some of you may believe he can hear a hard disk spin up and think it's a bug. Both of you would be wrong. What can you hear?
The communication satellite above my house. Every time I turn on my computer, I hear the satellite click on. And I know they're listening.
Now, I've worked in tech support and customer service for going on 12 years at this point. I've taken just about every call I thought I could take. And I've taught people how to do my job. None of that prepared me for the crazy I heard this day. The guy goes on a rant about how someone, the government, Bezos, Skylink, etc., is listening in on his computer usage, and how he's talked to the police, the FAA, the military, and they've all told him he's crazy. He's been getting us to send parts because he thinks he has a virus, and for 3 months, I'm the only one who's ever asked him why he thinks he has a virus. It was like the dams broke under the assault of the Ents, and I was Isengard, getting ravaged by the flood. The whole time he's ranting, I'm messaging a supervisor and noting everything, and writing up an email to the owner of the case, their manager, my manager, and the night manager I've been talking with. The supervisor straight up tells me, no, we're not replacing the motherboard for this. Absolutely no way. I'm totally cool with this, except that I know I need to figure out how to get this guy off the phone before I leave for the night. This call has already gone on for an hour. I've needed to pee for the last 30 minutes. I'm desperate. Then it hits me. Just agree with him, aggressively. I start playing into this guy's delusion, telling him that this is pretty serious, and way above even our lofty pay grade. I apologize, and let him know that we won't replace the motherboard since It would only slow down his pursuers. The virus will come back, and it's not something we can really help with. The line that really got him was this: "Sir, I hate to say this, but if someone has the resources to deploy a BIOS virus and a communications satellite to track you, this company cannot compete with that. You need to speak with a security firm or someone specialized in cybersecurity." He took a bit, but he finally agreed with me and I ended the call. Only somewhat related, but that email I wrote, I never once called the customer insane, crazy, delusional, or any other number of things I wanted to say. My call was done. This was no longer my problem. Higher paid people than me got to deal with this now. What I did say that I was particularly proud of was this: "I do not know where we need to go from here, but I do not think that this company can provide this customer with the assistance he needs." This case has since been closed. We did send him a motherboard, and there were no notes on the closing, just confirming the parts had been shipped. Called him twice with no answer and closed the case. It's over. For now. 4. Way back in the late 90s, I worked as a software developer for a tech company in the Pacific Northwest that produced portable data logging devices. They were battery-operated, self-contained units that monitored things like temperature, humidity, etc. One of our product lines was certified intrinsically safe, as it was completely encapsulated in silicone and had no electric ports. Instead, it had an optical port, and you could communicate via light wand. The unit was popular as its construction essentially made it waterproof. We sold these units all over the world, and one of our clients was a refrigerator manufacturer in a South American country. They would put the unit in the freezer compartment of the fridge on the production line as it ran through a test freeze and defrost cycle. They then would retrieve the information at the end of the production line to verify that the fridge was working within specification. Normally, downloading the information would take seconds, but on occasion the device would have trouble communicating and would take several minutes to download the data. This was a problem since it slowed down the entire production line. Our tech support guys were unable to help the customer. We could not reproduce the problem here. The issue was passed to us in development, both hardware and software, but we could not duplicate it either. So the client offered to fly an engineer to their location and put them up for a week. Our company asked for volunteers, and I decided to go. It was a very long flight, but I arrived at a surprisingly clean modern airport and was put up in a 4-star hotel. I was assigned a driver and an interpreter. The next day, I was driven to the client's plant. After passing through security, I was shown the station where the devices were downloaded. And that's where I spotted the problem. Remember, the units have no electrical ports and only communicated through an LED for both transmission and reception. The company was removing the units from the freezers and putting them on a table right underneath a large fluorescent fixture that was only 2 feet above. I immediately realized that the light fixture, which would have been flickering at 50 Hz, was tricking the occasional unit into communicating. Once it goes into the communication cycle, then plugging in the light wand simply confused it until it had a chance to reset a couple of minutes later. So I told them to turn the devices face down on the table. That prevented the light from triggering them. I also reported my findings back home, and we worked out a new firmware protocol to eliminate the problem in newer devices. But simply placing them face down until it was time to plug in the light unit wand solved the issue. I spent the next few days touring the city and buying souvenirs. The client also paid for a really nice meal at an Argentinian-style meat house. I could have stayed the whole week, but wanted to get back, so they exchanged my ticket and sent me home after 4 days. The thing is, we would have never thought of this back home. Sometimes you really have to be on site to figure things out. P.S. While I was there, they mentioned another issue. Employees were occasionally stealing the units. Apparently, they liked using the magnetic back devices as fridge magnets. especially since the flashing LED indicating a full device looked cool. They asked how much it would cost to install RFID trackers on, even cell phone trackers into the units to reduce theft. I simply told them to remove the magnets, they weren't using them anyway, and turn off the LED blinking via a software command. After that, I don't think any more were stolen. 5. Was doing some repair and refurbishing work, and the client asked if I could figure something out for them on another machine. Hey, while you're here, we have this other line that goes down every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times. We narrowed it down to this single file. Cutting out a lot of banter, basically the PC that runs the automation periodically shuts off unexpectedly. It sometimes happens in parts of the plant, but this machine is extra painful. After booting back up, the software fails to load correctly. Reinstalling takes too long after an expensive call to their vendor. They narrowed it down to this single random program file getting corrupted. Copying an uncorrupted file from a thumb drive is their solution now. But a manager with access isn't always available. I don't charge as much as the vendor does, so here I am. Well, man, I could just write a script that copies the file over automatically on startup. It'll do it even if it doesn't need to, but it's insurance. The client curses and then responds with, "Are you serious? We asked the vendor if they could do this, and they said they would consider it in the next software patch. That was 6 weeks ago." They're probably trying to figure out how they can charge you for the next software update. I slapped together a script, run its startup that copies a fresh program file from another directory to the affected location. We head to the machine in question, and I find the PC on a shelf, inside a cabinet, with less than great ventilation. Tucked in the corner of the room, I spot a UPS with lots of lights. I don't pay attention. Luckily, the manager has access to the admin account. Get everything in place, test it out for function's sake by holding down the power button, and prove to the client. I return the thumb drive to the client and ask him how many other machines are running the same vendor brand of software that unexpectedly lose power. "All of them. We only have 22 machines running a different vendor's software, and none of them have this problem." The client points them out, and they're in an isolated area of the warehouse, so maybe they're clear. I still didn't like that only this machine corrupts a program file, so I decided to take a closer look at the PC and UPS. I went to the UPS first and discovered that both batteries had swollen so much they couldn't be removed without dismantling it. Apparently the UPS was sending shutdown commands to the PC, which is why they were more frequent on this machine. I show this to the client. "Hey, did you know this UPS is shutting down your machine and corrupting your file?"
Yeah, right.
I think it's worth checking the machines that lose power. Their UPS might look the same as this. Does your vendor supply these? They're in their cabinet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'll get the parts team over. Can we check? Can you remove that script and backup file and see what happens if you just pull the plug?
You want me to deliberately remove power to a running piece of company equipment?
It'll happen eventually anyway. I'll pull the plug, you just remove the script.
So I remove the script and save copy of the program file. Reboot for posterity's sake, to show that the software continues to automatically log in looking for a job. Manager unplugs, replugs the PC, we boot it up. And it continues to automatically log in looking for a job. Client asks me to verify the script is removed, and of course it is. Parts team verifies that these UPS are supplied by the vendor. The failed and failing UPS across the warehouse was something like 40 to 50%. They didn't complete their count yet. We ended up finding an identical model that had good batteries and set it up with the problem PC. Deliberately let the PC and peripherals drain the UPS until it shuts down. Plug the UPS back in and let the batteries charge, and the PC boots up to the desktop without launching the software. Do the same on another machine and it's fine. The problem exists in one PC. Additional detail. Although all the machines are running the vendor's software, every machine is unique. So is the software. If I had to guess, the vendor has between 30 to 40 unique applications they wrote over the course of 20-ish years in this building. There are machines that do the same job but have different UIs, because they are automated at different time periods. I don't understand why the shutdown command from an APC UPS corrupts the vendor's program file, but I guess I called it. The client was less than thrilled spending so much time chasing this.
Hey, I think I found a bonus for you. It'll be part of the credit I get back from the vendor.
Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Terrific Tales of Technology, episode 29. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, if you could please interface with the like button and send the command yes to the YouTube servers. And please transmit this video to friends and or family units. Alright, no special shout-outs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. I've actually been working like a madman tonight trying to get all my next 3 days video recorded, so I'm covered to Wednesday. Which would be today. I think I put this. Yeah, this goes up on Wednesday. So that this sounds so silly. So I can clear Tuesday, which is when the big Phasmophobia update comes out, just so I can relax and spend the day just chilling out and playing that game. Because why not? You got to find time to relax now and again. Now, for those, and there's quite a few of those for community members in Florida. I send my love and thoughts to all of you. I hope things are not as bad as they seem like they might be, and that you are all safe and sheltered while things are going on. Right, now let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day, and today's question is... And this one's inspired by a conversation I had recently. What is your favorite short film? Any genre, it doesn't really matter. My favorite is one called Cargo. It's a zombie film made a few years back. I believe it's still up on YouTube in some form, I think. And it's basically the plot is there's a family. Starts off, there's a crashed car, and the father sees his wife has been turned into a zombie. He knows he himself is going to turn soon because he's been hurt. And they got a little baby. The little baby has to be gotten to safety, and that's what this few minutes of the film is about. It's very touching. They pack a lot in it. It's just very, very well performed. They did later do a full-length adaptation of it with Martin Freeman playing the lead instead of the guy in the short film, although he was in the movie playing a different character. It was also good, although, and I did enjoy it very much. I do recommend both of them. Personally, I enjoyed the short film a little bit more. But what are your favorites? Please do let me know in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.